Everyone is going to be kung fu fighting, and it's going to be very exciting as Marvel's Master of Kung Fu enters the MCU. Being a skilled fighter in a universe like the MCU is just clearing the "you must be this tall to ride this ride" requirement. Even unpowered punch and kickers like Hawkeye and Black Widow have to bring a little extra to the table. In the world of Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, that something extra is how their martial arts skills help them tap into the power of magic. Maybe with the help of a dragon or two. Who's going to bring that little extra bit of magic spice to the action in Shang-Chi? Let's rank them out. This was put together before the release of the movie, so it's spoiler-free. The Shang-Chi of the comics has led a rather lonely life, defying his evil mastermind father and his nefarious organization and fighting alongside other secretive organizations like MI6, the Protectors, and Agents of Atlas. We'll be meeting the MCU's version of Shang-Chi during his extended gap year. Rather than immediately defying his father's plans for his life and joining the good guys, Shang-Chi moved to San Francisco and forwent the whole super life altogether. That's where he met his friend Katy, played by comedian Awkwafina. There is no comic book analog for Katy, but there are examples of her role throughout the MCU. Scott Lang's Louise, Peter Parker's Ned. Not every hero's bestie needs to graduate to sidekick or hero. Their magic power is to be the character who finds themselves thrust into greatness that remains the link to their former normal lives. Being portrayed by Awkwafina means that her other magic power is going to be stealing the show, am I right?
We make a good team!
Look, names are hard, especially in a world where everyone has to have a gimmick. It's not enough to be a good fighter and master assassin, you need some branding too. But branding isn't exactly everyone's forte. That might certainly be the case with master martial artist and assassin Douglas Scott. When Scott's skills didn't prove up to the task of taking down Shang-Chi on his first try, he went for his own gimmick, blades at the end of his arms. Look, it works for Wolverine and Shredder, so why not here? Ultimately, Scott's fight record is a long series of L's that have slowly turned his razor fists from affectation to actual replacements for arms that he loses more and more of. The only magic he's been able to tap is that comic book magic of appearing to have been deceased only to inexplicably pop up again to menace another superhero. 2008 was a magical time. The MCU was a huge gamble from a struggling comic book company and not a massive juggernaut owned by an even more massive juggernaut. An actor everyone had written off in the 90s was in the process of turning a comic book staple into a household name, and the studio's next big swing was to adapt a character that had already had an unsuccessful go just 5 years prior. Wearing a different face, the Hulk was the second character to enter the MCU, where he faced off against mercenary Gon Gamma and Emil Blonsky, or the Abomination. We know from a Marvel one-shot that Abomination was General Ross's pick for the Avengers Initiative until they sent a consultant to annoy him out of the idea. The Abomination has appeared in a superpowered pit fight against none other than Wong in Shang-Chi, but the Abomination's powers are gamma-related, not magical. Not that that seems to be holding him back against Wong. When comic book Shang-Chi went to MI6 to fight against his nefarious crime boss Pops, he didn't go alone. Of course, he didn't know about how much company he had. MI6 agent Li Xingli was really an agent for Shang-Chi's father, but he couldn't really hide his shady ways. His body count meant that eventually Shang-Chi was sent to deal with him that sent him back to his father's organization, where he got a cool costume and a name at least better than Razor Fists, if not as cool a gimmick. Li Xingli became the Death Dealer. Death Dealer kind of works as the world's most redundant bodyguard to Shang-Chi's father. Instead of magic though, he relies on total savagery. Superhero movies and martial arts movies have one thing in common. They both, at some point, need a seemingly inexhaustible supply of henchmen to get boots to the head or beams to the face or whatever it is the hero needs to demonstrate their heroic bona fides. As a result, this creates the inverse ninja rule. It makes a certain degree of sense. If you have a bunch of students that aren't the best, you might just send them out as a group, hoping overwhelming numbers do the deed. It rarely does, though. The Iron Gang will be at least one of the groups providing grist for the mill in Shang-Chi. It stands to reason that even if they can tap into that magic, it probably won't help them. Sibling rivalries are tough, especially when your pops is an epic-level super jerk and mystic leader of a criminal organization with a penchant for treating his kids badly. In Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Manger Zhang will be portraying Shang-Chi's estranged sister, Xialing. While that character doesn't exist in the comics, comic book Shang-Chi has no shortage of sisters. A few of them went off to become masters of one of the 5 Weapon Society houses, including Esme, who became Sister Dagger, Zhang Jilan, who went to the House of the Staff, staff, and Zhang Shihua, who went to the House of Hammers. If only Thor had known there was a House of Hammers when his sister broke Mjolnir. He also had a sister who was meant to seduce none other than Black Panther, but T'Challa had other plans. All of them have their family's epic punching and kicking skills, as well as some of their dad's magic longevity. Zhang Xialing came with the bonus mutant power to turn the sounds of her flute into powerful tendrils. Most of them shared Shang-Chi's opinion that Pops was a jerk that had to be dealt with, a trait they'll be sharing with their on-screen amalgamation. Shang-Chi entered Marvel as Marvel's master of Kung Fu, and that has been enough for him to work his way through the Marvel Universe, even earning him a place at the table with the Avengers. But there are some key differences between the MCU Shang-Chi and the one from the pages of Marvel Comics. Comic book Shang-Chi's father has had a bit of an identity crisis. Originally, it was the character Fu Manchu, created by Sax Rohmer. When that license lapsed, his name changed to Zhang Zhu, who was an ancient sorcerer aside from being a terrible father. For the MCU, Dad will be in the form of the Mandarin, who has the ability to control the 10 rings. Between his father and his mother's abilities, Shang-Chi has the power to at least in part wrestle that control from his father.
And you are? Wow.
It's hard to get a handle on exactly how powerful Wong is. Long before Stephen Strange went to Kamar Taj to get his hands back in surgeon shape, Wong was in charge of the powerful sorcerer library. While Doctor Strange eventually elevated to master of the mystical arts and the sorcerer supreme, there's still one person who can tell Strange that there are some things he simply should not do. Not that Strange listens, but that's another movie. It might turn out that right after giving Strange that warning, Wong finds himself in the cage matches related to the Mandarin's plot to bring his son back into the fold. The scars of Trevor Slattery's fake-out as the Mandarin are soon to be healed as the legendary figure and the MCU's first villain's leader will show up, this time as Wenwu, father of Shang-Chi. The Mandarin gets his supervillain and foe to Iron Man via a collection of deadly jewelry. The 10 rings grant the Mandarin a specific set of powers: the Remaker, Influence, Spin, Spectral, Nightmaker, Demonic, Incandescence, Liar, Lightning, and Zero that he wears on his fingers, Ringo style. For the MCU, they've been reimagined in the style of training bracelets worn on the students' forearms that Wenwu can focus his power through. Shang-Chi's comic book dad also has a long, like longer than natural, history as a powerful sorcerer. The source of the 10 rings in the comics is not magical in the regular sense, but in the Arthur C. Clarke sufficiently advanced technology appearing as magic. That's because they were cribbed from a crashed McLuhan ship, a McLuhan like the dragon-like creature Fin Fang Foom. Is the Great Protector Dragon really Fin Fang Foom? Either way, he'll be playing a similar role as the source of the Mandarin's power. At least we don't have to wonder what Shang-Chi was doing while the Avengers were dealing with the Avengers stuff in the first MCU saga. Ultron and Thanos aren't exactly problems that can be handled with a swift kick to the head, and clearly Shang-Chi was trying to avoid that life his father had laid out for him, right? Yeah, that's a good explanation.